Hi, David. Welcome to Michigan Film Industry Radio.
It's an absolute pleasure to be back in Michigan, and thank you for your efforts today.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you here today to talk about the film incentives and the exciting opportunity to bring them back to Michigan. And you've had some experience with that in this state and then in other states. So let's talk about the beginning. The film industry here in Michigan had an incentive program a couple years ago. Some people feel it didn't work. Others felt it was working just fine.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you brought that up. Let's give context. So right now, currently, as we speak here in 22, there are 41 states and cities and 90 countries that have some sort of legitimate film tax credit program. FTC, we'll just kind of use that today. And in 2008, the economic times were pretty crazy, if we remember. And the governor and both House and Senate were trying to put people on the street, feed the economy, put in jobs. So they came up with an aggressive FTC for the state of Michigan. And back then, it was a newer process. There were only 4 or 5 states that had it. New York, California, Canada had perfected it in 3 major areas, Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. And Michigan gave a shot, and the program worked. They put people to work right away.
I got a lot of work from it when it came up here.
It was a good program. At the time, like anything else in life, at the time it was a great program. But as the program matured, there was housekeeping where they were tweaking the rules that didn't take place. And then the program went away as a new administration came in. No blame to anybody, but the program accomplished its goal. It stopped in the 3rd year, and we all knew from the beginning it was a 3 to 5 year program to create an infrastructure. But during that time, during that 2 to 3 years, what's lost in the marketing and the mix of everything, this has always been about a jobs bill. You talk about infrastructures like companies like mine, but there were crew that were trained. And currently, as we speak, there are 14 Michigan Teamsters working around the United States. They still live in Michigan, but they work around the country. People in the hair, makeup, wardrobe departments have moved to Atlanta. They still have relatives here. So they were trained on their craft. Instead of going to U of M, they were trained a live fire working industry, and it worked. And probably, if the film industry comes back, and it's our hope that it will, and very, very soon, those people will move back. And then the tax base will increase, which completes the sort of circle of life of why you have a film program and a film incentive for the state.
Yeah, I remember when it came here before, we had a lot of people moving back to Michigan. There's a lot of talent that have family here that have since moved on because there's not enough work here for them here in Michigan. So I agree that people will come back to Michigan in droves as soon as they can find work here.
Yeah, the crew base that's left back here, they do commercial. It's a very small.
That's what we survive off of.
One of the advantages of when we pass this film credit, we'll take the high road. One of the things that will be interesting is developing the crew base, which will be in a little bit of a deficit situation. So we designed, the people that wrote our House bills and Senate bills, they designed it with 2 tiers. So it's 30% credit against money spent for locals and 20% for out of state. Now remember that, I'm getting into it quickly, but if they bring somebody in from out of state, they have to house it and per diem them. So at the get-go, they're not going to want to try to bring people in because it doesn't make sense. You'll hear them say, I want to put money on the screen. But just to put a little carrot in there, we did the 2-tiered because we have concerns about the crew base developing, but we know if you build it, they will come, as it's happened in many states.
Absolutely. It takes a little while for that crew base to build up back here, right? You'll have people with that expertise moving back, but they won't be here first day.
Correct. It'll take a little bit of time to get uprooted. And, we compete, our state of Michigan competes, or all states, for film credit. So currently, hot off the press, Indiana just passed a film credit program. It's a $300 million economic development, of which $5 million is dedicated to film, which is not enough to have structured film. But it's a good start because they don't have a crew base and they'll need to get organized. And then in Kentucky, they just passed a $75 million program, and I met with them. And their program, the way they wrote it, it needs a little more tweaking so that we can get other companies to open up and develop the base. So it's happening as we speak. we want Michigan to take advantage. It's just silly.
It really is. The industry loves this state so much because of our diverse landscapes, the history of the cities, East Coast sunrise, West Coast sunset, sand dunes up in the north. I mean, you have such an environmental diversity here.
You do, and in addition to the fact that you can do a beach, right? The lakes can be an ocean. You have everything cinematically possible.
You know what, David? Let's use this as a transition to talk about how one I think is really exciting about this package is it's incentivized to get people out into the state and to not be localized in like a studio city.
Well, all right, yeah. Let's. God, I feel like I need a margarita while we're talking here. So, we manufacture film like you manufacture widgets, and when they make a movie, it's spread out across the state. You're not in a building, so your building is the state itself based on its locations in the script, as you know. So it really is a fantastic state. And then East and West culturally and diversity is so different.
And I think it's interesting is that we have that cultural diversity here in our state that you don't have in some of these other states. I mean, you can go downtown Dearborn and find the largest Middle Eastern population outside of the Middle East.
Well, as a Syrian, my parents' came over on the boat, as they say. So I'm always looking for incredible Middle Eastern restaurants. And you're right, we do have a here, and also Cleveland is another area where you have heavy Middle Eastern, an amazing shish kebab, which is it's what it's all about. Mm-hmm. I actually have a property in Michigan that we still have, and I planted 6 Concord grapevines to grow. It's not about the grapes. It's all about the leaves, grape leaves.
Oh
yeah?
Right,
yeah.
right.
Someday maybe I'll bring you some.
I love it. Let's talk about some of the, let's just call them packages here.
Hit me with everything, man. I love talking about film tax credits. It's the best.
Let's talk about the salary cap per person, because this is something that was not in the other incentive package, right? Like you could get people coming in here and big stars, and it just goes all out.
Man, you're hitting all the good points here. So, you hear about the quote unquote Hollywood handout.
Yeah.
So, and as we compete against different states, and every state's programs are modeled, you can use the word module, but modeled for an outcome. So in New York, for example, the state of New York, their program's $410 million, but they have no money above the line, actors, directors, producers. So they tend to get more TV. Georgia has no caps on anything and no restrictions. Mm-hmm. So they get the Marvel shows. So they did 1.5, call it, when they shot the Avengers, the 2 movies, and I got back like $400 million from the state of Georgia. And the state of Georgia, which is a state that runs a surplus in their budget. So at first it's like, oh, they paid out that money, but they've already done the science. Even with paying out big numbers like that, they have documented that the state makes money. Then you go to our neighbors to the left here in Illinois, they don't have any cap for their program, but they have a salary cap. Mm-hmm. So by putting in different salary caps, you control the size of the movie being shot. So this program was written, we're looking for the $10 million, $15 million shows because they want to hire more local, put the money on the screen. We're not looking for tent pole in Michigan, and we believe that that'll enhance the training of the film crew. The best win is a TV show. A TV show. When we started as a company in the 90s, we did the Homicide TV series for 8 or 9 years. So year 1, they shot the show. Year 2, people moved up. Somebody was on another job, and that's, training.
Yeah, you're right.
Did I answer your question?
100%.
I know I was all over the place.
No,
there.
but that was brilliant.
Exciting stuff.
Especially moving on to a TV show. I mean, that's such a big part of production now. 10, 15 years ago, it was about the feature film. They do more TV production now than ever. They do more episodic shows than ever before. So bringing one of those to Michigan, I agree with you, gives us that opportunity for long-term growth, to build the crew up, right? To build more of an infrastructure. TV enforces repetitive behavior, muscle behavior, trains the crew. It also establishes on the pure Michigan side. Here we are. We've just gone through COVID, right? We're still in COVID. And everyone's antsy, and we're all nervous of traveling. But people, it's ingrained in our DNA to travel. So, anything that's shot in Michigan or in, let's say, New York, where I work a lot, it's marketing in perpetuity, forever.
digital ties. So people see scenes that they know were shot in Michigan, pure Michigan. They're going to want to come see it. They're still running up the steps 55 years later in Philadelphia. They're in an art museum. Nobody calls it. They call it the Rocky Steps.
Right.
So there really is some transition. I mean, and it's just so frustrating because the movies are, everything around it is fun. Everything around it is feel good. As far as the crew base, I'm just going to put a note out for anyone that's listening. We're always looking for a film crew. And, you've got to be able to want to work 14-hour days, 16-hour days. This is not like a 9 to 5, I want to work in the movies. So you sort of got to be committed to the process. But it is an amazing career. I haven't seen the demographic studies from the MPA on where we are right now, but I would suppose that anyone that's listening in between 25 and 35 years of age, this is the right time to get in, because us seniors are all like 65 to 75, and we're going to be gone soon. Not hopefully gone from the planet, but there's going to be job openings.
No, and you're transitioning into leadership roles at this point, right?
Yes, and it takes time. There was a mentoring system that took place forever, all the way back to the 40s, and now with the unintended consequence of COVID was that nobody thought that Disney and HBO Max and Paramount Plus, I don't even think was thought of then, but all of these Disney Plus, no one thought their programs were going to go. And in fact, if you go back and look it up in the papers, in the Journal and the Times, they would say, oh, they're destined to fail because Netflix has such a footprint. So boom, COVID hits, everybody's home. What happens? All these places are racing to get content for streaming. So do you remember who bought MGM? I thought, Amazon. Amazon buys MGM, like 1,200 movies, boom, content. So we have this insatiable demand for content worldwide. The film industry is worldwide. So that's films being shot in all the other countries. I said 90, and it doesn't look like it's going to go away soon.
No, video is stronger than ever, right? And we should, if we're going to position our state for the future, we have to be part of growing industries, and video is definitely one of those.
Clean industries of videos, documentaries are surprisingly popular. Came back a little bit during COVID.
Documentaries, I think, are having a renaissance. They have with streaming, they have a bigger platform than ever, right? And even this package allows for documentaries, if they're short or if they're longer form, they're going to need a bigger budget.
Right, correct. That's dead on target. Because the whole, like from our side, those who are that put together the current bill, the idea was it's all about crew base, which I mentioned earlier. So. Right. Documentaries, independent films, smaller projects, $200,000, $50,000 projects. These are how you develop the workforce as they move forward. And the mentoring system, I kind of went off subject. The mentoring system is shattered because there's so much work that people are moving up, sometimes too quick. So, as is the case with the Alec Baldwin thing, there was someone who was an armorer, maybe didn't have enough years experience. I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know. But in general, those are the concerns. And then normally when you move people up too fast, it costs $15,000 to $25,000 an hour to make a TV or a feature. You move it up too fast and mistakes get made and they lose time and it's stress. It's still the greatest industry in the world. Oh my God!
The passion you can have for it and the experience,
and
connections with people are just unreal.
I want to do a plug though. This trade group started 3 years ago for MiFIA, MiFIA, Michigan Film.org, and we have an infrastructure. We try to raise $85,000 to $100,000 a year. We have a full-time company in Lansing that organizes us, collects the money, and does reports. We have 20 board members. We're looking for anyone who has the time. Sort of my motto as the chair of that group is whatever you can bring to the table. Some people bring money, some people bring prestige, some people bring worker bees, but you have to bring something to the table. Mm-hmm. So if any of your listeners are interested, check out the website. Lori is incredible and runs the trade group in Lansing. Please reach out and take a look because we are in the process of currently during lame duck session. We're waiting to see what happens with the election. So between elections and January 1st, we have a shot at putting the bill forward, and we're hoping to get it in. It's certainly salmon swimming upstream. It's a Hail Mary. If we fail, we'll be back at it again next year because we are resolute. We know this is good for the state, and we have faith in if we could get everybody talking it up, writing to the legislatures, which no one does, the people that represent them, it could go through.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we need to do is to help get this across the board is people listening today to go to MiFIA.org, make sure they sign up, become a member. You can give a donation if you like, but just join, become a member if you're film industry or not, if you want to be in the film industry, if you have a family member that wants to be in the film industry. It's very important to support this program and to just go online, sign up, and send a letter to your senator.
Yeah, we think if we were more effective in our messaging, the hospitality industry in particular and Small Business Association would join in because they are the ones that will benefit, especially in the first 2 or 3 years where there's no infrastructure, bringing in more people, more hotels, more restaurants. They're not the locals where they're going home to wife and kids. They're on location.
What I always said, there was a friend of mine had a sign store in Royal Oak, Michigan during the film incentives here. And it was one of those businesses that the government would never see on a report. But he had the best years of his 30-year career when those film incentives were here. Just because he's some local little sign shop, they coming in, they need signage, print out for Transformers or whatever they might be.
Yeah, no.
He had his best years from the film incentive.
It's a manifesting trickle down deal, and no, there's certainly studies, Ernst & Young studies, Ireland. UK did an in-depth study. They've had hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they have huge programs because they did the research. We're not in that situation here, but it's a black and white trickle down. It's not just lumberyard and gas stations. And then everyone
food.
Yeah, and then everyone works for this printer. What does he have to do? He has to hire another person.
He did.
Yeah,
he had to hire a couple people.
And then when it went away, he had to lay them off. The opposite is true too.
100%. Yeah, and that's a sad part of this history, right? Is you don't always see the bigger picture when they're in legislation. They're just looking at those bottom line numbers.
It is. I've gotten to know quite a bit of the legislature in Lansing, and it really is a difficult job. If you think about their lives, right? They're a character in a movie, and everybody's coming to them with their hand out, and everybody's coming to them with a better idea. And these people out, they run in your state. They run 2 terms or 3 terms, depending House and Senate. There's nobody there
long term,
doing like 10 terms. So they're in and out quickly. And like anything, if you join a club or a group, it takes time to learn your craft as it is for them. I don't know how they can decide what's real and what's not. I message to them, as I said earlier, 41 states and city, 90 countries, because to me it establishes as, this is real. This isn't like some made-up thing. It's a proven track record.
Other states have figured it out.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be difficult. What we're doing is not supposed to be easy. So if you come up with an idea, you got to be, as I said earlier, resolute. It's a great thing for the state, and you mentioned it earlier. You talk about the brain drain. So people graduate from all these great universities here, and then they leave. And if they want to stop it, keep the population strong, have them make babies. They got to be able to support their family, and it can't be, I worked on 1 show this year. They've got to have sustainable certainty in the program so that people will invest their personal time.
Right, otherwise they won't stick around. They'll be forced to leave.
Yeah, agreed.
One of the things I think is neat about this program that they didn't have on the last one is that it is a transferable tax credit. Yes,
so if you think of it like this, they have to fund the program. So there's two ways to fund a program. In general, any program. The government can write a check, which sort of gets political every year. They have a line item budget, or they can have a tax credit. So the way tax credits work is somebody spends the money, then it gets audited, then the government issues, I'm going to call it a coupon because it's more fun. They get a coupon, and then they have a tax credit of, say, $10 million to apply to the income tax that they would owe to the state of Michigan. So what happens is if Paramount comes in and spends $100 million, my numbers, but if they come in $100 million and they get a $25 million tax credit from the state, but they don't have anything to apply it to. Mm-hmm. So then they sell it to another Michigan enterprise. It doesn't really matter whether the company's located anywhere, but because you can only apply it to Michigan income. So it's a way to finance it. So the beauty of the program and the reason it's popular around the United States is the money has to be spent up front. Mm-hmm. The money has to be audited. It's not a government handout. You have to earn it. and then the credit is issued. It's applied. So if somebody like Comcast, Comcast Universal, right, NBC Uni, if they come here, they don't even have to sell the credit. They already have a giant footprint, and they'll apply it to their income. So it's not something that's new. Other people do it. Sometimes there's some confusion. You'll hear people say, "Oh, it's helping out of town country or companies," and the reality is, well, yeah, I guess, but it can only help them if they have Michigan income, so they're already working here.
Yeah, there's actually provisions in there that require physical location, brick and mortar.
They have brick and mortar in there. I think they'll tweak that as it goes, as it goes up the food chain, because you want to make the state open for business to bring people in, but at the same time, you don't want to have carpetbaggers come in and just take advantage of it and leave. So it's a whole process back and forth. And let's flip back to 2008. So when they wrote that program, it was very aggressive. They actually didn't address the Hollywood handout, and they didn't address helping develop infrastructure. But remember, it was critical mass back then. No one remembers now what it was like that. And I have to say, just if we listen to the paper, let's get contemporary right now. All you hear about is inflation and recession, inflation and recession. So it's coming. It's coming again. History repeats itself. So if we get this passed and that bump hits Michigan, and the car manufacturers are making less cars, right? And the economy is putting out less productivity, and people start getting laid off because companies are laying off, I think this film credit it's pretty much prime time to mitigate that. So I think it's another advantage for us. Oh, I don't want there to be a recession, but I haven't.
You can't control that.
I haven't seen any newspaper article anywhere that's predicting. The only question is when, and then how deep. So they're put in there. It's a plus column for us, Mr. Legislator or Miss Legislator, to vote for the program.
Yeah, they keep pushing off that the recession's coming. It's coming. It's coming, and it's obviously going to come no matter we.
And it doesn't matter if you're a D or an R. This program, the program itself around the country and around the world, it's not a D or R type of discussion. It's what's best for the state or the country. And sometimes states get bogged down into who brought up what. I'm still at 67 fairly naive and positive that people will see the light and really understand, our messaging. We just have to keep doing a better job.
Yeah, and I'm really truly excited because as somebody who was starting their career when the film industry was here the first time.
Take a minute and tell me about that.
Okay, yeah. So I started my professional career around 2005, and 2006. William Deere came into town from Angels in the Outfield, and he had a project he wanted to work on here in Michigan, and he picked me up as the DP. It was my first big credit.
I'm in the presence of a DP.
Yeah.
And your name is on the credits?
Yeah, well, the film never got released.
Oh, you were so close.
I was so close.
Go ahead, please.
But he came into town and really gave me a lot of good experience, right? And that set the tone for when the film program did come into town. I already had been working in the state a couple of years. So I was able to get picked up as a second, or even helping on producing side, right? Assistant line and things like that. Helping films pull it together here in Michigan because I was someone on the ground. So it was really helping take my career off, and then it just went away, right?
Did you think of it as a career then? Like when it was evolving in 2005, you gone, it was kind of cool, blah, blah, blah. Then
I did, because I had already made the decision that was the direction I was going. I'd started planning M1, where we're recording at today.
Which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I am here at this incredible recording studio. You should make an appointment and come look, and let me know how the front lobby turns out, because we had some ideas today to figure it out. But this is very, very exciting.
I appreciate that, David. Thank you. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
It's
so, what recommendation would you give? I'm turning the tables on you. So, what recommendation would you give to someone that wants to get into the business currently? And we can stick with the DP. Anything in lighting, grip electric. What's the pathway forward currently?
I think a lot of people find a passion in camera and photography. And so they want to get out there, they get their own camera, and they start working. And that's ultimately what I think it takes in this industry, is just start doing it, right? Like, you can only learn so much from school. I didn't go to school for film industry. I've been able to make a career out of it, but I went to school for business, right? And engineering first, actually. So I think you have to just get out there, do it, start working in it. I mean, find independent sets, work with people, do it yourself. Just make a movie. It doesn't matter if you fail, right? Be part of the 48-hour film project that you're forced to make a movie in 48 hours. A beginning, middle, and end will teach you so much about the process in such a short amount of time, right? It is a passion-driven industry, and you need to get a couple of those projects under your belt just to see if you have the passion to keep going.
You have the passion and the skill set, especially, was it Soderbergh that uses a hand cam, like a homemade camera to shoot some of his movies?
Yeah.
So, if your listeners are hearing that, you got to practice. You got to have heart, and you got to practice, and you have to be relentless.
10,000 hours.
Your mom and dad aren't going to like it. They're not going to be critical because they're not earning any money. But you got to get out there and do it every day.
Every day. It is, and that's, one of the interesting things about what we've been able to make work here at M1 Studios is we've built a team that can do video as their day-to-day job in a state that doesn't support them, right? So when the film programs do come into town, some of us get work in the film world. We have our own films that we work on that get going, but ultimately we have to make our money off the corporate world in this state. Or, as I'm flying out next week, I got to fly out of state, right?
Yeah.
And I have a feature film I'm helping produce, $2 million budget, probably going to have to take it out of state, right? It breaks my heart to have to leave my own state when I got someone else's money to spend. Mm-hmm. It's not our own project. I'm just helping them produce it. I'm putting it together for them. And I'm going to have to take that money and go somewhere else? That drives me wild. Like, I'm going to just...
No, it's the whole process and a lot of hard decisions to make. And, again, it's about, what's it going to look like in addition to the money. So I feel you on that. A lot of people suffer with that film credit. And, I haven't walked those steps. I haven't made a movie and walked your steps, but I feel your frustration on it, and I have no words of wisdom other than you just follow your dream.
Follow the dream, never stop, never look back.
Yeah.
So let's touch base here. Let's see what we have not talked about. Post-production we have not talked about. Commercials we have not talked about. Corporate videos. So let's move into corporate and commercials since we were just talking about M1.
Sure.
So it's a $50,000 minimum budget for anything under 20 minutes. So that could be a 30-second commercial if you're someone like Cadillac.
As long as it's for national release. Because, you don't want someone like on a hobby go shoot it and then it stays in the can and never goes anywhere. So it's got to be based on national release. The commercial community, the thinking is the commercial community in Michigan is sort of untapped. I know they do a lot of commercials in other parts of the universe, not here. You get into union and non-union, and it's a whole quicksand that I don't want to really get into. But the reality is it's an experiment. We think if we put the carrot out, we'll get more work, more union work, which, as a plug for the unions, it's about, benefits, retirement, medical, and the unions are an important structure for the United States.
Especially in this state.
It's the backbone. Well, all states, and sometimes the unions get a bad rap. It's unfair. But if we could develop a maturity level with its professional union films, but at the same time be supportive of the future crew base and let them do their thing. And I really think because there's no program here, I think it's a ripe opportunity to get that perfect harmony between the two. And in the commercial world, it's not my specific world. Peter Klein's on our board, and I think he's a DP. At least he says it. Tall, good-looking guy. Yeah. Anyways, this was an experiment to see if we could grow the commercial industry and bring it back, like it was in the 70s and 80s. So we don't know, fingers crossed. And for me, it's everything's about labor and the crew base. The most important part of any project is labor, whether you're building a cruise ship or you're building a factory or making a movie. So having an experienced craft makes everything more efficient. So.
Yeah, and somebody early in my career told me that the film industry was the most collaborative industry in the world because you have to take people who have maybe never worked together, put them in the tight quarters, pressurized hours, and be creative.
Oh, yeah. There's a growth that happens at a rapid pace if you work on a film, to your point earlier.
Yeah,
so people who are relatively new, who are not used to working 12 or 14-hour days, This is not the industry for someone that's going to go shock and awe because someone said something rude. We're on a mission to get the shot. It's an athletic event. We want to be professional. We want to be pleasant.
We have a time limit.
But it's about getting the shot safely, I might add, safely, professionally.
Right, yeah.
What was the second one? You said brought up commercial.
We were talking about industries and corporate video commercials, right? And then post-production.
Post-production.
We don't really have a big post-production industry here anymore.
Yeah, I don't know with our limited dollars, and I'm speaking as the chair, but not for the entire board of MiFIA. I don't know that post-production would be efficient use of the funds that we have. Because you can go to New York and get like 38%. You could shoot the movie anywhere and edit there. I don't know what they do in LA.
It's like 40% in Jersey as well.
Yeah, there you go. Jersey's a new program. It went from 75 to 150, and then they have a second pool of money. Right now, Netflix, according to the papers, just closed buying a Fort Mammoth, and they're going to put in 15 sound stages. There's 8 sound stages being built in Bayonne, New Jersey. So Michigan should follow New Jersey. And that's really what we would do. Although in New Jersey is an advantage because a lot of the actors are based there.
Right.
So they have a little bit more of an advantage and have a crew base there with the Teamsters and IATSE, whether it's makeup or whatever it is. So we wouldn't have that going for us. But I think the industry is looking for a fresh look, and Michigan has that look. People are tired of shooting in Georgia. Georgia's full employment.
Everywhere you go in Georgia.
Vancouver, they're looking for who's the new place to go. We should be at here.
I agree.
If not, it's going to be Kentucky and Indiana.
Well, that's what happened here when they kicked it out. It became Atlanta, right?
Correct. The Georgia program wisely, in my opinion, took advantage of the growing mistakes of the Michigan program, and they made it better, and it is better. And I was there on the ground when it was just a cornfield, watching the plans and looking at the plans. And they built an entire town currently to the side in Peachtree City, Fayetteville. They have, in process as we speak, 8 more stages when completed in July of next year, which would bring them to 32 stages. And Marvel, has a footprint, but there are other people filming there, and they are, without a doubt, expensive, first-class facilities, and they have infrastructure. So it's almost like that movie. What was that movie with Jim Carrey? Truman?
Yeah, The Truman Show.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Truman Show. When I walk around, I just went to a restaurant 2 weeks ago with one of my friends in real estate, and I felt like I was in the Truman Show. It's all planned, all built. I know it sounds like I'm doing an advertisement for it, but they built all these houses. There's like $1.5 million homes next to $250,000 homes. You can ride around in golf carts. Everything is brand new. Wow. Everything in the community. New hospitals, they're putting in new hotels, fancy restaurants now. It's almost like it'll be a second Atlanta, which I think is what they're probably going for. And it was all the genius that was, and I was there in 2010 at the meetings when they planned it all. And now, everyone's sort of duplicating their model, a lot of money. And they don't call it Pinewood anymore. It's called Trilith. I don't know who's involved. I never saw the financial stuff. But I know it's a model that other cities and states and anyone building a soundstage wants to look at. And there are other sound stages there too. I think they call them lift up, where they build the cement on the wall, on the ground, they lift them up. There's some slang for it's how they build those. And then there's kits that are made where the steel is manufactured like a home and they put it together. But there's probably 9 or 10 multi-stage facilities there, in addition to, and it's for purpose built, in addition to warehouses that were converted.
Wow, it's really pumping in.
It is, and it's interesting. No one kind of knows where it's going to go, and everybody's knocking down the guy that's doing well. I'm a Yankees fan, so I'm used to people knocking the Yankees because they win and they win a lot and they get paid well. So. As far as let's segue into sound stages for a minute, since we
we're right there.
So part of the downside of the program from before was that the state funded problematic. Now they funded some sound stages. We do not need any. David Haddad said so. We do not need any sound stages in Michigan.
None.
We need we don't need anything. We need a film credit program. We get 75 to 100 million. They're going to go find warehouses. They're going to go out. They're going to spread the money throughout the state and rent warehouses that are empty. And then eventually, if this program goes 2 and 3 years on its own, without state money, taxpayer money, people will come here to make money. That's why they build sound stages. They don't build it to help the Salvation Army. They do it to make money. No one is going to spend money unless they can make money. It just doesn't make sense. So when I was talking about one of the other states, when they were designing the program, they got to design the programs. We have to design the programs to give the opportunity for year 3 and 4 for people to open up and spend money, which increases the ROI and then increases the trickle down. A soundstage costs, a minimal soundstage for purpose is maybe $10 million. That's money going into the economy, minimum. I don't even know what a redo warehouse would be because the ceilings have to be a certain height and everyone has their vision.
Yeah, and the soundproofing alone, retrofitting is almost not worth it for some of these warehouses.
Right.
Let's talk about some of the validation that they've put into this package, right? Certain things have to be validated if you're going to qualify.
Yes, a qualified expense is our terminology.
Great, qualified expense. It says we need to have a CPA verified.
Yep, so what happens is they make a movie and then they have all these receipts and invoices. They hire a Michigan, I almost said Canada, a Michigan CPA firm, and there's rules that they follow. The nickname is agreed upon procedures. The movie wraps, and then an independent accountant, paid for by production, an independent accountant goes through, assembles the information, just like an income tax return, really, and then it gets submitted to whoever, the Treasury or the film office, and they go through it at whatever period of time, they validate it, and then they write the credit.
And that has to be a Michigan-based company?
We prefer, because, it's all about that ROI. Yeah. All the money spent in Michigan is important. Like, even if they buy, I rent trucks, right, in the film industry, trucks and trailers. So, we don't want them to go into a neighboring state and buy 5,000 gallons of fuel and give back Michigan taxpayer money on purchases that were in Indiana. So all purchases, the way the laws are designed is maximum as possible purchases come from the state, and the rule of thumb is you don't get back taxpayer money unless you spent the money in the state. Just like an overriding view. Kind of makes sense when I say it out loud, but no one really thinks that deep. But I'm a bit of a nerd with this kind of stuff.
But this is the type of thing that's going to allow this package to be sustainable.
Yes. The more money spent in the state, the higher the ROI. And depending on what study you read, it could be $1.05 to $3.50 per every dollar spent, in that scenario with the trickle down. They all have formulas, established formulas, what they do. So the Mackinac Center, you'll hear a lot of stuff, very, very conservative group. They're good people, just like everyone else. Mm-hmm. And they're a very ultra-conservative group. The people that donate and pay their wages are a very conservative group. So they're not paying them to be fair. They're paying them to argue one side. So if you take a very simple model like scales, visualize the scales of justice, right? So what they do is, and I'm proposing incorrectly, but what they do is they say if you spend $50 million in money in the state, you don't get back $50 million in tax revenue. And to that narrow description, the way it's modeled, it's true. I'm not afraid of it. It's true. Now let's take that same model, this oversimplified model, not like the UK model in England where they spend a lot of money. Take that same model and let's apply it to pure Michigan or the farm subsidies or whatever the auto industry gets, right? Or whatever it is for the education programs. If you use their same model on anything for the state never gets even close to the tax money. What I propose to you today is, of all the tax programs that they have in the state, our film tax credit program gives a higher ROI than any other program in the state. They spend the money first. I keep saying over and over again, they spend the money first. It gets qualified by an independent accountant. It's very straightforward. It's a movie industry. It's right. Not something complex. There's no some weird tax formulas. It's just straightforward. If you buy something in LA, you don't get back Michigan money. So this messaging has to go out. I'm sorry, I was bashing Mackinac. They're good people, and the stuff they have should be thought about, but they lack. I guess my complaint about the media in the universe. Okay, it's my third bashing today. Is when the media presents stories. If you notice now, they'll say it's a 300% increase. It's a 500% increase. They'll talk about the percentage, but they never say it went from 1 to 3 or 1 to 5. So they just say, they make it sensational, and they don't give anyone context. If you have context in almost anything, you can make an informed decision. So whether it's the politicians with their advertisements on their commercials, or whether it's the media reporting something, and that's all media. I'm not talking to the left or right away. All of them, they have failed. The Walter Cronkite, probably nobody knows who he is anymore. The days of media used to be the articulation of facts. They would give us context, and you'd see a story, and they would give us 2 or 3 follow-up stories to give us context for the story. And the Mackinac Center lacks context when they give their view, and they're only presenting one side, and that's their right. They're supposed to do that because they're supporting the people that donate to them. Did we tell your viewers what I do for a living?
I haven't gotten into that. Let's do an introduction today.
Yeah. So I'm an equipment owner based in Pittsburgh, but we work in 17 states. I grew up at the family gas station. My dad was a welder for Jones and Laughlin Steel. He worked as a graveyard mechanic at a Chrysler garage, and he worked at his brother-in-law's Amoco station. And we're talking 1953, 1954. I was born in 1955. So his brother-in-law, through the Amoco gas station, offered him a dealership because he was connected. So in Pleasant Hills, Pennsylvania, which we nicknamed the Garden Spot of America, he took over the gas station. He had to raise $3,000 in 1954, 55. And it was $1,000 he borrowed from, which is a lot of money, $1,000 from each side, and raised $1,000, and that was the cost of a tanker of fuel. And he became a dealer, an Amoco dealer. So after doing it for a few years, they started doing mechanical repair. They couldn't make it on that. Then he bought a car and did service calls. Then he bought a pickup, and then it became a tow truck. And fast forward, I learned. My first job was working for my dad when I was 12, so I worked at the gas station. I learned to drive on the tow truck. So against the advice of his lawyer, listeners, absorb this, against the advice of his lawyer, his insurance agent, and his accountant, he bought a used pickup truck, a repo pickup from Mellon Bank, and he rented it out for $6 a day and 6 cents a mile. So we got into the daily rental business, not U-Haul or Ryder.
Right.
And it was my dad. It's just what we did.
Yeah.
So we probably had like 20 or 30 trucks, 9 or 10 tow trucks, and that's all we did was tow cars. I was changing flats on Christmas Day. I had the dirty hands and all that stuff. My amazing wife, St. Karen, marries the tow truck driver in 1983. And we move on. We shot Flashdance in Pittsburgh. Flashdance comes to Pittsburgh. They need 1 box truck from us. And that's our first movie rental.
Was Flashdance?
Was Flashdance, yep, the whole deal, right?
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, who knew, right? And I'll tell you a story the next podcast for your listeners. I'll tell you the story behind the scenes of the off-the-shoulder sweatshirt that the star wore and why that came about.
A little teaser for next time.
There you go. Ron Howard came a couple years later and did Gung Ho. Here we are. Right, in the auto industry capital of the world, he came and did Gung Ho. Who knew? That's before all the Japanese firms and the foreign dealerships. I would recommend everybody rent it. It was pretty kind of prophetic now of what happens. Anyways, it talked about the culture then. We did that movie, and we learned more about the industry. It's just a side deal. And then in 1988, we bought, fast forward to a couple jobs here and there. In 1988, we bought our first makeup trailer used and cast trailers used from a guy in L.A., and it got moved from L.A. to Delaware. And the first movie that we did with equipment was Dead Poets Society.
Oh,
right.
cool.
So then we start building our own stuff, in 1990. And I have to tell you this story. I think your listeners will find it funny. So they were doing the movie in Pittsburgh. Now remember, I'm the tow truck driver, right? We mom and pa rental.
Yeah.
And I want to build a wardrobe trailer. So they're shooting RoboCop, right? Most of the transpo people come from Texas, so they're in a town called Uniontown. So I drive down, it's like 10 o'clock at night, I have my camera, my Canon camera, and I go into the fence, inappropriately around security because I have the Hathead tow truck, right? So I'm able to drive right in.
Oh, sneak right in.
Right.
The power of film industry.
Yes, yeah. Well, nobody was
like
there.
You own it.
Yeah, nobody was there. So I would just drove up like I should be there, as you said. So I photographed this wardrobe trailer inside and out. I'm the smartest man in the world. My hands are shaking and trembling, right? Just like a movie. So I photograph it. I take all. Remember, there was no digital then. There was no cell phones then. So I take the pictures and I put them on a wall. And I find a vendor in Pittsburgh, and it's made with 2x2s, right? And we build this wardrobe trailer. And I look at this wardrobe trailer, and I'm like, oh, I'm the smartest guy. So then I build a second one. Right, within 4 or 5 months, and we're renting them out. It's small, like 28-foot bumper hitch. And then 3 years later, I realized I copied a bad wardrobe trailer. I built two brand new bad. Yeah, so it's sort of the deal, so you better check out. And then, since then, we're in the 5th generation. We have lots of equipment and lots of employees. And I always see people coming around photographing our stuff, and I'm like, they're photographing good stuff. If I could just get them to photograph bad stuff, it would delay their learning curve. It's a little industry behind-the-scenes stories of what not to do.
Yeah. That's so fascinating to hear, though, where you started.
Oh my God.
They say entrepreneurs typically haven't come from an entrepreneur, right? So your father was an entrepreneur.
Yeah. My father, those 3 people telling him not to do something, and he went and did it. This is when gas was 40 cents a gallon. 40 cents a gallon way back when. They would make a half a penny. I always said, Dad, why do they always do that 9, 25.9 tenths of a cent? He says, it's the closest they can get. They didn't want to do 26. Right? That was a marketing strategy back then. Another dad marketing strategy. So in 1976, we had the first gasoline shortage, right? Where gas went, oh my God, to $1, right? For who would know, would love that now. And I noticed as we traveled around in our tow trucks, and I had to travel with extra gas cans because gas stations were closed. You couldn't get gas. Like, Dad, I don't understand. Why would they separate the gas stations with, every exit or every other? Why is it when you get off, it's one of those things in life. Why is it when you get off, there's always 3 gas stations, right? They're competing against each other.
Yeah, why?
He said that they had a marketing thing that one station feeds off the other. Another dad thing, and I'll finish talking about my dad, is the story goes that McDonald's was first as a restaurant. Yeah. So all of a sudden, Wendy's is born, right? They're starting to do stuff. So the story goes that instead of Wendy's spending millions of dollars doing demographic studies, population studies, and all the driving stuff, they just built within a half a mile of McDonald's. Think about the money it was saved, but someone else did all the research. So it's sort of the feeding off each other.
Oh, wow.
Has nothing to do with film tax credit, but I thought it was amusing.
It's still fascinating, and industry is industry. What I love about the opportunity of bringing Michigan film back is that people not in the industry can get excited about movies and TV shows. You can't ever get the public to be excited about a new automotive plant being built or a solar energy battery company. As cool and as exciting as that technology may be in the EV world, it doesn't drive passion and excitement in the young people, right? It doesn't make people want to move back to the state. It doesn't just get people excited to go, oh my gosh, they might make a movie in my town, right? Movie industry has that ability to invigorate the public, to invigorate the youth.
I concur. You talk to people and someone, they were an extra in their movie, even people in their 50s and 60s, when they tell that story, just like I'm looking at you now, you're smiling ear to ear. When people talk about their movie experience, it brings joy. And I know it sounds corny to say, but it does. So again, come on, Michigan, catch up.
Come on.
Yeah. Catch up and feel good about the state and feel being part of something that is digitalized and it's there forever.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is the other states around the country. How many again?
Let me say again, I think it was 41 states and cities and 90 countries.
They've all figured it out.
They have.
They figured out how it works for them, how it's sustainable, how it makes them money. there's no reason Michigan shouldn't have a program at this point.
We should be. It would only.
We're just go. All we need to do is go in and take some photos, which you've already done.
Yep.
And bring them here to Michigan.
Yeah, it's a positive impact for the state, and with all the drama going on in any state, and yours is not short, but with all the drama, it could bring people together. When I'm in Lansing, I'm reminding the D's and R's in the Senate and the House that this is a feel-good issue and this is a bipartisan issue. There's no negative to this issue at all, and it only can bring good things to the state. If I had a magic wand or if I had a magic lantern, as in that joke I just told, my wish would be that every listener that hears us talking on the podcast, that takes a moment and email their local state or state legislator or senator and just say, I would like to have filming in our state. You don't have to go into a lot of detail. They track that. We get 5,000 emails going into the state and the House in the next few weeks. When we hit that lame duck session, that would help us try and lunge forward to get this program up. That would be a big help. It's hard to motivate people to do it. They're a little afraid of it. I don't know why. But listen, you guys are Michiganders. Come on, man.
Let's
Michiganders.
do it. We can pull together.
You guys can do this. It's not that hard.
Well, David, thank you very much for being on the radio today. Today, our guest has been David Haddad, the chairman of the board of the Michigan Film Incentives Program, MiFIA.org. Make sure you check it out. My name is Matthew Peach. You've been listening to the Michigan Film Industry Radio.